Is Data gonna kill somebody? Does Data commit murder? Oh my god. Hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Kristina, Kristina. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. You guys are all I have. My circle of family and friends is microscopic, so I need you guys, all of you out there in the World Wide Web world, to please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe my channel. Let me know I'm doing a good job, please. It's Friday, so it's Star Trek Day. We did Hollow Pursuits last week. Please check out my video with Lieutenant Barclay and all his Hollow adventures. Today we're doing the most toys. Next week we'll do Sarek. The week after Menage a Trois. Okay, the most toys, episode 170, season 3, disc 6. The captain's voiceover introduction. In order to neutralize contamination of the water supply at the Federation and Beta Engini 2, what's up with the names? What is up with these names? We are procuring 108 kilos of hytronium from the Zabinian trader Cavis Fajo. Again, what's up with the names? Because the pure hytronium is too unstable, our transporter, Lieutenant Commander Data, has been running the shuttle materials to the back and forth to the Enterprise. The first scene is Data contacting the Enterprise, tells the captain that this will be the last ship as the cases of hydronium are being loaded on the shuttle. Picard then tells Worf to advise Beta Engi 2 that they will be leaving soon. Riker says at Warp 6 they should be there in 16 hours. Data contacts the Enterprise and said loading is complete and the shuttle bay to prepare for docking, and a level 1 incoming materials remain in effect. The lady comes over and has him sign for the last load, and she gives him the thumb pad, and he uses the thumb and he's electrocuted. Then she scans his body. Then we are back on the bridge of the Enterprise, viewing the other ship and watching the shuttle leave the ship and head to the Enterprise. Geordi is reading off some technical terms. As they watch the shuttle leave the other ship and come to the Enterprise, the shuttle explodes. There's another voiceover after the introduction. As a result of a yet unexplained shuttle explosion, Commander Data has been lost. Then we're back on the ship, Enterprise. Riker asks, why didn't the containment field hold? Geordi says, unknown. They contact the other ship. Mr. Fajo asks the captain what happened. Picard said it's unclear and they are running a full analysis. Fajo says they detected no malfunctions before the explosion. Everything seemed to be running as smoothly as the other flights, and asks if they were able to save the pilot. Picard says no. Fajo says sorry. Picard asks Fajo if they could analyze their sensor readings of the explosion. Fajo says compared to the Enterprise, our sensors are primitive. I doubt they contain any information that your sensors overlooked. Picard says perhaps, but I don't want to leave any avenue unexplored. Fajo says he understands and will transmit the information. Fajo snaps his fingers. What's with that? Good grief, I don't get it. What's with the snapping of the fingers? That's just, Worf says link is established and they receive the sensor info. Fajo asks if they can be any further assistance. Picard asks how much vitranium did we manage to get on board. Riker asks 81 kilos. Geordi says that will barely allow us to complete our mission. Captain, but it leaves us with no margin for error. Picard says, Mr. Fajo, I realize we have acquired your entire supply of hytronium. Do you know where we could get more? But Fajo says it may be difficult. I know a source is in the Sigma Aranda system. Riker says it's 3 weeks away. Fajo says he can't guarantee they will have any. For obvious reason, no one wants to keep it around. In fact, even I may stop selling it. It's just too dangerous. Riker says, I guess we are fortunate that you had any at all, sir. Worf says transfer of information is complete. Picard thanks Mr. Fajo for his help and tells Wesley to set course for the Beta 2 Angie system at Warp 6. Data wakes up and his comm badge is missing. Data asks, "What am I doing here?" Fazio and Vera walk in and he says, "Wondrous, the detail, the balance. Wasn't I right, Vera? Oh, what a remarkable piece of work." Data asks, "Why have I been brought here?" Mr. Fazio gets excited about the voice simulation. Perfection. Fazio tells Data it took great effort to bring him here and he was sure it would be worth it, and he says he was right. Data says, "I have been delivered here against my wishes. I would like to know the reason." Fazio says, "Certainly. You've been brought here for my enjoyment and my appreciation." Data says, "I am to infer that you intend to keep me captive." Fazio says, "Captive is such an inappropriate word. My dear android, may I call you Data?" Data says, "That is my name." Fazio says, "You will be catered to. You will be fawned over, cared for as you've never been before. Your every wish will be fulfilled." Data says, "My wish is to leave." Fazio says, "Almost every wish." Data says, "This is unacceptable, sir. I have no desire to remain here, and even if I did, my Starfleet duties would not allow it." Fazio says, "It's so single-minded, isn't it?" Vera says, "Very persistent." Fazio says, "Very polite, which is very nice touch. He says he declines to allow you to go." Then Data tries to escape and is unable to. He says it will take 40 androids to open up that door. It's keyed to galvanic skin responses and DNA patterns. Data says, "Then you will have to open it for me." He goes to grab Fazio. Fazio has a personal force field, a proximity actuated field that impedes position flow. It is very bad for the brain pass in the long term. Fazio tells him about the items in the room. They have been gathered from half the galaxy. He is very proud of what he has collected over the years. And he tells him about the items in the room, the baseball card, etc., the Mona Lisa. And he tells Data the room is very unique, and he shows him the chair, and he wants Data to sit in the chair. And Data just stands there. Fazio says, "Sit, sit, sit. You think it might be uncomfortable, but then again, you don't give a thought to comfort, do you?" Fazio says, "When Politoff learns of this, he will swallow his tongue with envy. I can't wait to see his face." Fazio says, "Data is the crown jewel of his collection. You are a treasure beyond comparison. I think you should be flattered." Data says he is not. Most intelligent life forms find involuntary confinement offensive, inequitable. Moreover, you have violated Federation law. Fazio says he knows, and I have done is evil, selfish, immoral, unprincipled, illegal, but I have learned to live with it. Barris says the Andronians wish to make a bid on a shipment. Tellurian spices you offered. Fazio says that they have had 4 days to decide. Why do they have to decide right now? Data says, "I must emphasize, Mr. Fazio, that I consider this captivity a hostile act on your part." Fazio says, "You'll get used to it." Next, we are back on the Enterprise. Wesley and Geordi go to pack up Data's stuff. Wesley says, "I can't believe he's gone." Geordi says, "Yeah, I always thought he'd outlive us by centuries." Wesley goes over to the painting and says he's been working on this for months. He never felt it was quite finished. Geordi says, "You know what a critic Data was, especially about his own work." And they look at the stuff in Data's room. Geordi pulls out the Bible and says that Wesley says that was a gift from the captain. I would like to go on record here saying that once again, and proof this will never go out of style. A book. A real book. It was a book. A real book. A real Bible. Geordi takes out the playing cards and Wesley says those should go to Commander Riker. Then Geordi pulls out all of Data's medals. Wesley says these are some of the Starfleet's highest honors. Geordi says not bad for a walking pile of circuitry and memory cells. Then Geordi pulls out the hologram of Tasha Yah. Geordi says, "You know, I keep going over and over the accident in my mind, trying to figure out what went wrong. I can see Data in the shuttle almost like I'm sitting there next to him going through the departure sequence. What the hell happened? Why didn't I see it coming? What am I missing? So I'm back on the other ship. Vera walks in and says, Fajo wishes you to wear this set of clothes and sit in your chair. Data says, I have no reason to accede to Mr. Fajo's wishes. Vera says he will give you reasons if you force him to. Data says, Mr. Fajo is deluding himself if he believes he can keep me here. The Enterprise will find you. Vera says they are not even looking for you. They think you are destroyed. Your shuttle blew up, a neutronium explosion. Data says they will scan the debris and discover I was not aboard. Vera says they will find exactly what they thought they would find, traces of your component elements, just enough to put you on the shuttle. Data says clearly Mr. Fajo has no moral difficulty with my imprisonment here. Vera says Mr. Fajo has no moral difficulties at all. Data says, did you? Vera says, very clever, android. Is part of your program to seek out vulnerabilities in your enemies? Data says, yes. Are you my enemy? Vera says, I obey Fajo and so does everyone else on this ship. Data says, why? Data says, you are a curious thing, are you? Data says, you object to the question. Vera says, Fajo finds ways to get what he wants from his people. He rewards his loyalty of lavish. His punishments for disloyalty are equally lavish. You won't find anyone here on this ship to help you escape. Face it, android, he has you. Then we are in the briefing room. Geordi is telling Picard and Riker, the reason I can't find anything is that there is nothing to find. I have run this analysis a dozens of times over and over, and there's just no indication of any malfunction. Riker says, no explanation at all. Geordi says, there is one. I don't believe it. Pilot error. Picard says, I know it's hard to believe, but even the best. Geordi interrupts him and says, Captain, it's not only hard to accept with data, it's impossible. I mean, I can't even begin to calculate the odds. Well, if Data were here, we could ask him. Picard says, what are you suggesting, Lieutenant? Geordi says he doesn't know. The whole thing just doesn't make sense. And I like all things to make sense. That is it. Riker says, Geordi, maybe if you got a little rest and came at this fresh. A little rest isn't going to change the computer analysis, Commander. Picard says, I'm sure you've done a complete investigation, and if you wish to continue it, of course you have my full support. And we shall be reaching the Beta Agni system shortly, and I expect you to be rested. Picard says, Geordi, I understand how much we need to explain an accident like this. Sometimes there just aren't any explanations. Geordi leaves. Riker asks for an android with no feelings. He sure managed to invoke them in others. Picard says, we must select an officer to replace Data at Ops. Riker says, Worf would be my first choice. Picard says, mine as well. And then he reads from the Bible. The one that he gave Data that they gave back to him. The actual book. We're back on the other ship, and Data is feeding that little creature. I felt so bad for that little guy. I really did. My heart went out to him. Faja walks in and says, you are still wearing that uniform. Why? Data says, I'm a Starfleet officer. Faja says, you are not in Starfleet any longer. It's time you adjusted your program to accept reality. Data says, if I choose to do so, it is doubtful that my program could be sufficiently altered to accede to your wishes. Faja says, oh. Data says, I have been designed with a fundamental respect for life in all its forms and a strong inhibition against causing harm to living beings. Faja says, what a marvelous contradiction, a military pacifist. Tell me whose dreadful idea it was to enlist you in Starfleet to begin with. Data says, my skills seem appropriate. Faja says, Data, a big mistake, grievous error. You belong in Starfleet as much as I belong in a verbal contract. Faja tells Data, have you killed yet? Data says, no, but I am programmed with the ability to use deadly force in the cause of defense. Faja says, shame on you. How neatly you rationalize your capabilities. How can you casually accept your role in murder? Data says, I would not participate in murder. Perhaps you misunderstood. Faja says, you can't see how much better it would be for you right here. The intellectual words alone, our personal exploration of the galaxy. I am at war with no one. I am your liberator. Data says, you are a fine debater, sir, but it's a pity you you have used your verbal skills for more hucksterism and the advancement of your own greed. Fazio says, perhaps you would not judge me if you knew of my desperate youth wasted on the streets of Zabilla. Data says your past does not excuse unethical and unmoral behavior, sir. Badger says, well, it doesn't matter. It wasn't true anyway. My father was quite wealthy, actually. He was a thief. And says, Data, why don't you put on these lovely clothes and go sit on the chair? Data says, I must decline. Badger says, you are going to be much more of a challenge than I had first thought. He orders a drink from the machine and then he takes it over and he splashes it on Data, which, like acid, causes it to eat away at the shirt. So I'm wondering, just saying, if Data cut his shirt here, would this the rest of this could have dissolved? But if he cut it here and prevented the formula from moving further, he could have saved his uniform if he slid it right here with just slit it. But no, he just stands there and looks at it dissolve his uniform. What's up with that? Just saying. See, look. I mean, if he just slit it, he would save it. He could save the rest of the shirt, the pants at least. But now he just stands there and looks at it. I know, plotline. Just says, in case, why don't you make a decision about which alternative you dislike the least? Make a decision by dinner time tonight. I have invited a guest to meet you, and I expect you to be as entertaining with him as you have been with me. Brody's dreaming about the accident, and he figures out that he was missing something. Troy and Worf are walking. Troy says, your first watch at ops? Worf says he has served at that position before. Troy says, I have been concerned about you. Worf says, why? Troy says, because I know how I'd feel if I was asked to replace Data at his station. They go into the turbolift. Worf says, promotion due to death of a crewmate is commonplace on the Klingon ships. Troy says, I know that, but this isn't a Klingon ship, and Data was your friend. And it's the second time you replaced a crewmate who died. Worf, I honor Data's memory as I did Lieutenant Yars by attempting to perform their duties as well as they did. Troy says in true Klingon fashion. Worf says, I appreciate your concern. The next scene, Geordi and Wesley are in engineering, and they're running through the recordings of the data, and they keep comparing them all. And Wesley says he didn't report the shuttle leaving the car bay of the Jovis. Geordi says, of course, there really wasn't any reason for him to make voice contact. He knew we'd be monitoring his position, and any other pilot might not have bothered, but Data not following standard procedures. Wesley asks, what do you think it means? Geordi says, I'm not sure. I suppose he could have been too busy. Maybe he saw something was wrong. Wesley says, without communicating it? That doesn't sound like Data either. Geordi says maybe that means something was wrong with him, but there was no indication of that. Nothing he said or did during the entire mission, none. Sure wish I could talk to the last people who saw him alive. So then we're on the other ship, and Faja brings in company. And the man notices Data, something new, and you didn't tell me. Faja says, Mr. Data, I'm delighted to see that you dressed for the occasion. Data just looks. Faja says, hello, say hello to my friend Paula Tuff. Data does not respond. Faja says, Data, say hello. You don't need to be shy. The visitor says it's a mannequin of some sort. Faja says, this is not a mannequin, this is Data. This is formerly Lieutenant Commander Data of the Federation Starfleet, the only sentient android in existence. The guy examined Data and says it doesn't seem particularly sentient right now. Faja says it's because it's playing a stupid little game with us. The guy says someone has certainly played a game on you, Faja. Faja says, I don't find anything this amusing and I demand you behave normally. Faja snaps at Data and Data falls. Faja apologizes. The guy says, do not be upset, my friend. I'm having a delightful visit. Then we're back to the Enterprise. Wesley says, now entering the Beta Angai system. Riker says, take us to half impulse, Wesley. Geordi contacts Bridge. He says the Class 2 probe has been loaded with hydronium compound and ready to launch. They launch the probe. Wesley says, now approaching Beta 2 Angai. Picard tells Crusher to put us in close orbit. Picard starts to call for Data and realizes his mistake and apologizes to Mr. Worf. The whole crew just went, and tells him to scan the colony subsurface water. Worf scans, tritium contaminant confirmed. Some more technical information, and then they go back and forth, and he says the highest concentration is west of the colony. Geordi says, according to the information, the 81 kilos should be enough to neutralize the contamination. They launch the probe. It enters the field. Dispersions faster than expected. Worf says something unusual. He's getting concentration of tritium readings. They do some more discussion and decide to take an away team down to the surface. Data is looking at the picture of the Mona Lisa, and I'm wondering why he has not sent a homing. Maybe I want to know if Data has a homing signal worked in his stuff. Because I'm betting you in other episodes there's a homing signal in there. Or why he's not played with the replicator machine, see if he can get a signal going. Instead, he's looking at Mona Lisa making smiles. Fadja comes into the room, says he would like their relationship to change. Data says, you may expect me to use every means at my disposal to resist your wishes. Fadja says, why couldn't you just comply? Why did you have to just argue all the time? Why couldn't you just go and sit in the chair? He asked Data several times. Data just stares. Data says he does not intend to sit in the chair. Fadja says you will. You may not believe it now, and he opens the secret compartment and pulls out a disruptor. He asks Data if he knows what it is. Data says it's a prototype for a Veron T disruptor. Data says the Veron T disruptor is banned in the Federation. Fadja says they only made 5 and he owns 4, and he sleeps with one under his pillow. He says he sleeps very well knowing it's there. Do you know why? Data says it's a lethal weapon. Fadja says it's not just a lethal weapon, it's vicious. It tears a body apart, inside and out, and it does it very slowly. By your phaser standards, torturous and very painful. He says he always wanted to try it. Data says he's very doubtful you would destroy me since you assigned so much value to me. Fadja says that goes without saying. And then Vera comes in the room, and you can see where this is going major, huge, big time. He takes the phaser and he puts it to her head, and Data goes sits in the chair. Good grief. What's that syndrome where people fall in love with their captors? I forget what the syndrome is, but that's what this seems like. Right, next scene, Worf, Dr. Crusher and Riker are they beam down to the planet. Dr. Crusher scans the water and says the contamination has been neutralized. The water is clean. Worf says, curious, the process of neutralization should have taken several hours. Naturally occurring titanium does not respond this quickly. Riker says, are you saying it's not naturally occurring? Worf says there are no natural trace elements present in the crystals. Riker says, if it's artificial, then we are talking about sabotage. Dr. Crusher says, without tricinonite, it's hard to believe. It's slow to assimilate, difficult to replicate, and hard to transport. There are lots easier ways to poison water, and more effective ways, too. Riker says, can you think of any reason a saboteur would choose to tricinate? Dr. Crusher says it might pass for a natural disaster, and since there is only one way to treat hydronium, maybe somebody figured we couldn't locate it. It's hard to find. Riker said, then it's really lucky that we were able to find tritinium when we did, and just enough for this crisis. The next scene is in the ready room with Riker, Worf, Picard, Dr. Crusher, Geordi. Riker says, saying that Fadja was in the right place at the right time just when we needed him. You're suggesting he created a problem just to solve it, possibly. Geordi says, what, to make a profit from his sale of hydronium? Dr. Crusher says it doesn't add up. The cost of producing tritium was very expensive. He couldn't make a profit, quite the contrary. Worf says, then why would he do it? Riker says, what would he want? Picard asks the computer for a biographical file in Fadja. Bing! 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 Light bulb! It took them long enough. Question. Why didn't they run him before they bought the stuff from him? Just saying. Okay, so then we're back on the bridge of the Enterprise. And Wesley says that Jovis has a maximum speed of warp 3. They've been away from him for 23 hours, so they are looking for him. Riker says he is a traitor. He doesn't attract customers by being hard to find. Riker says we should put out a level 2 coded message to all Federation outposts. Picard says make it so. Okay, so back on the other ship, and Data is trying to open in the secret compartment. Vera comes in and says, if I help you escape, will you take me with you? Data says the consequences, and she says she knows. So then she goes over to the secret panel, opens it up. Scene is back on the Enterprise. They get confirmation response from Staten Lava. Who makes up these names? Oh, that looks horrible. That looks horrible too. Worf says they got confirmation response from Staten 4. Riker says Fajo spent more than half a day in orbit, departed over 7 hours ago. Picard says Mr. Crusher set course for Lava 4. And they're back on the other ship. Data says maybe I should attempt to communicate with the Enterprise. Vera says Fajo has communication access restricted just to bridge. Once we are out on the shuttle pod, we'll emit an emergency beacon. We just have to hope somebody responds before Fajo is able to destroy us. Data says I am trained in evasive maneuvers. Vera says we'll need a few. Let's get going. As soon as I start the escape sequence, an alarm will sound. We won't have much time. She starts the thing. The alarm goes off. The guards come in. Data takes care of the guards. Fajo walks in, and Vera and him stare at each other. She's on the floor. It's so dramatic. Oh my God, you know. And then Data, he ends up killing her, and he tells Data it was his fault. He knew the price of disobedience, and so did she. Well, there will always be another Vera. Data picks up the phaser, and Fajo says that Data won't hurt him because Data has a fundamental respect for all living things, and he is a living being. Okay, I want to know why the extra doesn't help Data. He knows that Data could get him free. So Data picks up the other weapon, and Fajo says that Data won't hurt him because Data has a fundamental respect for all living beings, and he is a living being. Therefore, you won't harm me. Data says you will surrender yourself to authorities. Fajo says what? Or you'll fire? Empty threat. We both know it. Why don't you return to your chair, and you will entertain me, and you will entertain my guests, and if you don't, I will kill someone else. One of the guard wakes up, and Fajo says him perhaps. Doesn't matter. Their blood will be on your hands too, just like poor Vera's. Your only alternative, Data, is to fire. Murder me. All you have to do, go ahead, fire. If you only could feel rage over Vera's death, if you could only feel a need for revenge, then maybe you could fire. But you are just an android. You can't feel anything. It's just another interesting intellectual puzzle for you, for another life. Data says, I cannot permit this continue, and raises the weapon and points it at Fajo. At a very precise second, they beam Data out to the Enterprise. O'Brien says he is reading a weapon in transit with Commander Data, and it seems to have discharged. O'Brien deactivates it. It's nice to see Colin Momini back in the show. Unfortunately, he only has a few lines. Again, it's my pet peeve. I feel bad for the poor man. He has like 5 lines. Welcome back, Mr. Data. Are you all right? Data says, yes, Commander. Please have Kevin Javo taken into custody for charges of murder, kidnapping, and theft. Riker interrupts and says arrangements have already been made. Riker says the Verendity disruptor belongs to Fajo. Mr. O'Brien says the weapon was in state of discharge. Data says perhaps something occurred during transport, Commander. Data goes to see Fajo in the brig. Oh, you've come to see me repent. Your final satisfaction. Want to see me beg for mercy. You are not going to get any of that from me. Data says I'm not expecting nothing. Fajo says our roles reversed, aren't they? You are the collector now. I am in a cage. Data says so it seems. Fajo says it doesn't count. Don't count me out too quickly. I had you in my collection once. I can have you there again. Data says unlikely. Your collection has been confiscated and all of your stolen possessions are being returned to the rightful owners. You have lost everything of value. Beta says you must give you great pleasure. Data says no, it does not. I do not feel pleasure. I am only an android. So that finishes our episode for today. I would hope you please like and subscribe my channel. Let me know I'm doing a good job. And stay tuned for next Friday when we do Sarek. We did Hollywood Pursuits last week, so please check that out if you haven't. And I've done all the previous ones to season 1 and season 2 and season 3. So, and then please tell me from Liza Troy, where I believe Troy's mom comes back. We shall see. Maybe we'll get some Riker Troy interaction. Please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. And have a good day. Thank you.